The brain is really the motor that controls the body. See, the brain on its own does nothing. You've got to be there. It has been determined that there are from 10 billion to 14 billion nerve cells in the human cerebral cortex. And we know that these are arranged in definite patterns. It is inconceivable that such a network of intricate machinery should be in existence for the sole purpose of carrying on the physical functions incidental to the growth and maintenance of the physical body. Is it not likely that the same system, which gives billions of brain cells the media for communication one with another, provides also the means of communication with other intangible forces? You know, when you think of the brain, you're thinking of something pretty magnificent. It's reported we've got Albert Einstein's brain in a jar somewhere in New Jersey, but it's not doing anybody any good because Albert's not with it. See, the brain on its own does nothing. You've got to be there. You use your brain. Your brain is actually like an electronic switching station. If you're not feeling good, it's because you're activating some negative cells in your brain. When you're feeling good, you're activating positive cells. You activate them though, and you activate them through thought. And when you think, what you're doing is you're activating brain cells and you're sending positive charges or negative charges of energy off into the universe. Thought waves are cosmic waves that penetrate all time and space. As you study into Napoleon Hill's work on the brain, keep in mind it was done some time ago. He had done a lot of studying of Dr. J.B. Rhine's work down in Duke University. When I first started studying this, I was following Rhine quite a bit. Dr. Rhine was a professor at Duke, and he did a lot of work with mental telepathy and with clairvoyance. Performed a lot of tests. He turned a lot of skeptics into believers. He helped us understand what we could really do with our brain. You know, we know very little about the brain. We're just really beginning to learn something about the brain. We never operated on a live brain until about, 60, 70 years ago. Prior to that, we were operating on the brain from a cadaver. We're just really beginning to get tuned in to how the brain works and how to work with it. We telepathically communicate with other people all the time. You may have a loved one on the other side of the world, and you get a strong feeling one day that you should phone them. And you pick up the phone, and lo and behold, phone didn't ring, you didn't touch the dial, but they're on the other end. You say, wow, what a coincidence. That's no coincidence. One of you was thinking, and the other picked up that vibration and acted on it. You see, one of you sent out a vibration, it activated the cells in the other person's brain that were in harmony with it, and you acted on it. It's much the same as me hitting send on a phone. If your phone's open, it'll ring. That's the way it works. We tuned in on a frequency and we sent a message. Well, you can do that with your thoughts. When you're not feeling good, what you want to understand is you're activating pictures in your mind that are negative. You're worried, you're creating or activating pictures that are already there that are not very positive. We don't need to do that. When we operate with understanding, we want to realize that we are activating brain cells all the time. When you think, that's exactly what you're doing. Thinking is a function of the mind working in harmony with the brain. And when it's done with understanding, great things can happen. You see, what we do, we put our mind onto a frequency of thought. What we're doing is activating a certain group of cells in our brain. We activate those cells, that enables us to pick up vibrations. You might find yourself sometime with a small group of people, and all of a sudden you start to feel very angry. And you don't know why, but you've got this angry feeling. Someone in the group may be very angry. Although you don't notice it, they're not saying anything, their face doesn't even indicate it, but they're angry about something. You have anger cells in your brain. That vibration they're sending out is activating the anger cells in your brain, and you're moving into an angry vibration. That's telepathic communication. If you're in a restaurant, when people are eating, they're very rarely thinking. They just eat. It's all automatic. It's a habitual action that we're involved in. They have their back to you, You might visualize, actually see them turning around. You actually visualize them turning around looking at you. You're sending that vibration into their head. They'll start to get uncomfortable, and pretty soon they'll turn around. And you'll see that what you did was actually plant an idea in their mind for them to turn around, and they will actually turn around. You're sending message like that all the time. Do you know, it's not uncommon for salespeople to sit down and make a marvelous presentation of their product or service, and then they're thinking they're not going to buy it. Why would a person do that? Why would a person go to the trouble of making a great presentation and then think they're not going to do it? If the prospect's in a subjective state, that's what they're picking up, and that's what they're going to do. They're not going to do it. When we ask a person to do something, we want to see them doing it, because we are communicating intellectually, we're communicating emotionally, and we're communicating physically all the time. So we're sending messages from our brain to their brain. The brain is the switching station. The brain is the broadcasting station. It's also the receiving station. It's the part of your physical body that will pick up the energy from universal intelligence, translate it into ideas in your consciousness, and help you understand where you're going or what you're doing. We mentioned in the lesson on intuition how we pick it up by feelings. Well, it's the brain that picks it up. That picks up the feeling. When we ask questions of ourselves, what we're doing is asking universal intelligence. So don't see it as something that you're just having trouble with. If it's a question, ask the question. You're asking universal intelligence. Universal intelligence will rush to your aid. It'll give you whatever you ask. It's totally deductive. But you've got to be in harmony with it. You've got to be on that vibration of the good that you want to receive. And your brain will receive it. Every time we think something, we're creating an image. And that image is impregnated into cells in our brain. When we try to remember something, we go back and we're digging around in a little compartment, bang, we get the right brain cells activated, and the picture flies on the screen of the mind. Whenever your senses are affected, it affects the brain. All of nature's creatures respond to outside stimuli. When we are communicating with another person, we're communicating using words. Don't use buzzwords that are familiar just or peculiar just to your business or industry. Use words that everyone understands. I one time heard where President John Kennedy had his speeches prepared so a 10-year-old child would understand them. He was an effective communicator. He knew how to communicate with people. You see, words are symbols. Every symbol has a corresponding image. Well, it's the picture in our mind that we're attempting to transfer to the other person's mind, and you do it through brain cells. You get the picture in your mind, and you're thinking it, and you're transmitting it. You use words, you talk, but you're also sending the strong vibration. And that activates cells in their brain, and what you're doing is building pictures and impregnating them into cells in their brain. Now, we've got an infinite number of cells, more than you'll ever use. When there's a problem in the body, it's usually a problem in the brain. There's no such thing as a mental retardation. That is a misnomer. You'll often hear people talk about mentally retarded. There's no such thing. There's only brain damage. When you see a person that has difficulty, it's brain damage. Let's take a person that's had a stroke. The brain is the greediest part of the body when it comes to blood. And there's a lack of blood that goes to a particular part of the brain. Like that, the brain cells die. Now, they may have been the cells that are wired to operate this arm and this leg. And so you'd find these limbs will become lethargic, they'll become useless. But we've also found if we take now and we activate and move that body, we open and close the hand and we move the arm, pretty soon we will educate healthy cells to do what the damaged cells can no longer do. That's a relatively new idea. I think it's called patterning. We're learning so much about health and the relationship of the mind and the brain insofar as the body's concerned. The brain is really the motor that controls this body, but it's the mind that dictates what you're going to do with your brain. So do you see, when people hear the mind, they automatically think of the brain. But the brain is not the mind any more than your hand or your heel is. The body is the body. Mind is the mind. James Allen said, mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind. And evermore he takes the tool of thought, and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys or 1,000 ills. We think in secret, but it comes to pass. Environment is but our looking glass. See, the brain doesn't do it on its own. You work in harmony with the brain. You're a soul. You don't have one, you are one. Nobody's ever seen the mind. So when you think of mind, don't just think of the brain. Think of everything about you is the mind manifest in physical form. The brain, though, is a wonderful tool. You can use it to send out good vibrations, and you can use it to receive great vibrations. But clearly understand this. You do become what you think about, and that is because your thoughts dictate the vibration you're in. The vibration you're in dictates what you're going to do. It also dictates what you're going to attract. I one time heard Earl Nightingale say, when you set your goal and start moving toward it, it'll start moving toward you. And at first I wondered, did he really mean what he said? This was years ago I heard him say that. And as I started to study, I never forgot him saying that. I had such respect for him. He was such a brilliant man. I thought, did he make a mistake? Did he really mean that? As I start to move toward my goal starts to move toward me. No, he did mean it. I just hadn't understood all the implications with the brain, the mind, and the law. You see, when you hold your goal in your mind, it's impregnated into cells in your brain. And when you activate those cells, you put your mind and body into harmony with everything that's required for the manifestation of the goal or the image. So as you move into that vibration and you change the way you behave, you also change what you attract. And so you start to attract to you. It's like you're magnetized. Everything is required for the image to move into form. And it's the action-reaction as they come together that alters the conditions, the circumstance, and the environment in your life. Your brain plays an enormous role, but it's the mind that activates the brain. Understand clearly how the mind operates. Your mind, on a conscious level, can reason inductively or deductively. Your subconscious mind only reasons deductively. Now, the inductive reasoning factor is the part that can choose individual thoughts. And as you choose these individual thoughts, you're impregnating them into a group of cells in your brain. And as you bring them together, you build ideas. And so you get those ideas in your brain. They're pictures. That is what's going to dictate how you're going to live, where you're going to go, how you're going to feel, who you're going to attract, who you're going to be attracted to. There's some people you feel very attracted to. There's others you want to get away from them. Why is that? It's because of the vibration you're in. It's because of the way you think and the way they think. When two people are thinking the same way, they're being attracted together. And when they're not, they're being repelled. So you'll be in a person's presence sometime and you feel very uncomfortable with them. Why? It's because of the way they're thinking. It's because of what's going on in their mind. You see, their brain is sending off these charges of energy and your brain's picking it up. And it's setting up a vibration in you that you don't particularly like. Well, ask yourself where it's coming from. It's probably coming from those people or that person. Get away from them. Now, does that mean that you have to literally get away from them? Not necessarily. Could be a loved one. But you can shut it off. You can shut their energy off. You see, if you're not thinking, your conscious mind's in a totally deductive state. In other words, everything that's going on around goes right into your subconscious and controls the vibration you're in. So you put a white light of protection around yourself, and you guard yourself from the energy coming from those people. There's people that you're going to visit, that you're going to be around. You don't particularly enjoy them, but, something causes you to be in their presence for a while. You want to be very careful. You want to protect yourself from the energy you're picking up from them, because it can do you great damage. Now, you can be right in their physical presence and it won't bother you. But if you leave your mind wide open, they're going to be activating cells in your brain that are not going to put you in a very good vibration. The brain's a wonderful tool. It's a magnificent one. We're only really beginning to start to understand it. We're starting to understand what parts of the brain does this and what parts of the brain does that. But clearly understand it's only recently, relative to the whole scheme of things, that we're starting to understand it. Never operated on a live brain until, I think Vincent Fay was one of the first neurosurgeons to operate on a live brain. There was another man, Glenn Doman, who was a therapist, and he was fascinated with what Vincent Fay was doing. And Fay befriended him, and he used to let him come in and watch him. Glenn Doman learned a lot, and he started to understand that if there was a problem with a person, it was a brain problem, and it could be corrected. And he began taking children that were really in very bad shape and bring them right back to normal shape. He began teaching children to read before they could talk. His foundation today does marvelous work. Glenn Doman, great work. He wrote a wonderful book, How to Multiply Your Baby's Intelligence. And it all has to do with the brain. It has to do with how to teach the little child. See, the only thing a child is missing when you're teaching them that the adult has got, the child doesn't have, is the experience of vocabulary. If we would realize that that child is a marvelous mind, just the same as the parent, then we're going to start teaching them different. Instead of goo-goo, dada, we start to teach them something that makes sense. They can comprehend it. They will get it. If you take into consideration, they don't have the experience or the vocabulary that you have. But their mind operates the same way. They have a brain and it operates the same way. And we want to start to plant beautiful pictures in their mind, because the pictures they have in their mind of themselves as they grow older is going to dictate the life they have. As we give the child, the small child, beautiful information about themselves, tell them how wonderful they are, the child will believe everything we tell them. Tell them the truth. Tell them how magnificent they are, the great potential that they've got. All of that information is tucked into cells in their brain. As they get a little older and they think of themselves, they're the pictures that keep coming on the screen of the mind. Now that's a lot better than the parents that criticize the child, always chastising the child for doing something wrong. You know, a child that grows up with a lot of criticism grows up very insecure. A child that grows up with a lot of praise grows up very confident. And that is because all this information is tucked into cells in their brain. And when those brain cells are activated, the pictures come on the screen of the mind. And it's the pictures that control the vibration we're in. So when we're thinking of our children, let's really think. Let's telepathically communicate beautiful ideas to them. Until my children were a pretty good age, I used to sit down with them. When they were ready to go to bed, I would lay down, they would lay down, I'd put my hand on them, and I would say positive things to them. Some people say they call that saying prayers at night. Well, I guess you could say that. Prayer is the movement that takes place between spirit and form with and through us. A lot of people think, God help me, on their knees is saying prayers. That's making a noise on your knees. Prayer is the movement that takes place between spirit and form with and through us. And I would put my hand on them, I'd make a physical connection, and I'd have them repeat, I'm so happy that I'll wake up feeling wonderful with a smile on my face. And I would say positive things to them. That's the way all the kids woke up. That's the way they went to bed. That was what was programmed into their mind. You know, when my daughter was 16, when Colleen was starting to drive a car, I was very busy. And I wanted to spend more time with her, teaching her how to drive, than I had. So I would take her out for a lesson, but then I would have her at night lay in bed, and I would have her mentally driving the car. I would get her to parallel park, I'd get her to merge onto heavy traffic on a freeway. I'd have her do all these things mentally, and I'd have her go through them all, one after another. And I taught her to do that. Every time I took her out, her driving had improved dramatically. You see, you can mentally do it, and the mind doesn't know the difference. What you're doing is you're educating brain cells to set up an action that's going to give us the result we want. Make certain that you're putting the pictures in your brain of the thing you want. Make certain you're focused on your goal, you're focused on how you can, not why you can. Take a look at the 6 Ghosts of Fear. Take a look at that lesson. Study that lesson. It's about indecision, about worry, about fear. And see the vibration you're putting yourself in just through this wrong choice of thoughts, the activation of the wrong brain cells. See, every brain cell has a positive and negative pole, just as everything is a positive and negative. So you can think of anything and you activate the brain cells, you can act the positive or the negative pole in those brain cells. Why would we be activating the negative? It could be a habit. Can we change it like that, change it to positive? Absolutely you can. See, there's something good and something bad about everything. And all of that is programmed into every picture. Our brain stores pictures, a zillion of them. Everything you've ever seen, heard, witnessed is programmed into the brain. Make certain that when you're thinking, that you are thinking positive and you're sending positive energy out into the universe. See, when the energy flows into your consciousness, it has no form. It's neither positive or negative. There's a power flows to and through us. And you can actually photograph it leaving the body. But as it flows in, we think. We build pictures. Why would we think of what we don't want? Well, possibly because we're misguided. We're thinking of what we want, but we don't see the resources, we don't see the money to get it, so that instantly causes us to think we can't have it. Let's realize this. All of our present results are the manifestation of what we've been thinking in the past. Do not let present results control your thinking, or you'll create more of the same. You look at the present results, that gives you an indication of how you have been thinking. You think, now if I keep thinking that way, I'm going to get more of the same. You go to your source of supply. It's coming to and through you every second of every day. It never stops. It's continually flowing. It's circulating. Circulation is one of the first laws of the universe. In everything, your blood starts circulating, it's all over. Well, this energy is circulating to and through you. And you're thinking, you're building cells in your brain. And that brain cells send it out, and it's attractive. It's a marvelous tool. It is a switching station, an electronic switching station. But clearly understand this, on its own it does nothing. You have to do it. You have to activate it.
The real leaders of the world always have been people who harnessed and put into practical use the intangible, unseen forces of unborn opportunity, and have converted those forces or impulses of thought into skyscrapers, cities, factories, airplanes, automobiles, and every other form of convenience that makes life more pleasant. Get out your notebook, write the brain in capitals at the top of the page, and then I'm going to use this principle in the following way, and then finish that sentence in your notebook. Don't overthink it. Just tune into your own powerful intuition and record on paper what comes to you. Do it now.